The prophet's wife, Hope, was born Hope Amelia Brumbach in 1913. Her grandfather was Ellsworth Brumbach, and he lived in a small house next to the cemetery that is now her final resting place. Elza was the superintendent of the cemetery and tended the grounds where his granddaughter's tombstone would be planted, and where his son, Hope's father, would nearly die at a young age. When Hope's father, Charles Brumbach, was 13, he was assaulted near the Brumbach home by attackers who mistook him for an adult. The newspaper accounts did not explain why, but Charles' attackers brutally beat him. Tuberculosis, which claimed the life of Hope Brumbach, claimed the lives of others in the Brumbach family. During the 19th and 20th centuries, tuberculosis was the leading cause of death in the United States. It was rightfully named the consumption because the disease consumed the victim's body until it wasted away to nothing. Hope's uncle, George, died of tuberculosis in 1910, though the family tried desperately to seek a cure, both from the medical experts and religious. The family had taken George to Franklin, Louisiana for healing, but were unsuccessful in their attempts to save him. Hope's father, Charles Brumbach, was a locomotive fireman. In 1912, Charles married her mother, Hazel Scott, and the newlywed couple moved to Logansport, Indiana, where Hazel's health would suddenly decline. Hazel became critically ill. When Charles' mother came to visit, however, Hazel started to improve. It was later learned that Charles had been abusive to Hazel, and their marriage would end in divorce for the first time. When Hope was 1 year old, Hazel made it known that Charles had been abusive and had abandoned the mother and child and was no longer providing for them. By 1919, Charles had returned to Jeffersonville, Indiana, and risen to limited fame for his achievements on the railroad. During a meeting of the Order of Firemen and Enginemen, Charles was recognized for his work with the lodge. It was announced that his daughter had returned to stay with him for a brief time, and it seemed that Charles was turning his life back around. In the early 1920s, Charles entered politics. At the end of 1923, Charles accepted the nomination for Democratic trustee when control of the local government passed from the Republican Party to the Democrats. In January 1924, Charles won the election in the 4th District. Suddenly I remembered that this was the same year that Charles Branham, the prophet's father, was arrested for his involvement in the production of illegal liquor for the R.E. Wathen distilleries and Otto H. Wathen. There was an article in the Fiery Cross, the Ku Klux Klan's Indiana newsletter, describing the Ku Klux Klan headquarters in Jeffersonville after it burned. It was during this time that Jeffersonville newspapers were exposing the names of the Ku Klux Klan, which was under scrutiny throughout the state of Indiana during the reign of Ku Klux Klan leader D.C. Stevenson and his control of the Indiana government. Jeffersonville had become a hot spot of activity against the Klan, and during the heat of the battle, the headquarters and all records were burned. The Jeffersonville Ku Klux Klan headquarters was on the 2nd floor of the Spythe Building on the corner of Spring Street and Chestnut, the same building where Shemps first started his candy store. Jeffersonville had multiple branches of the Ku Klux Klan, both male and female, and the building was used as a headquarters for both branches. One part of the building was used for the women, while the other part was used for the men. According to the newspapers, Mr. Brumbach had the key to the Klan headquarters. It was about this time that the prophet made his first trip west to live on the corner of 16th Street and Henshaw Road in Phoenix, Arizona.